All right, guys, so this is my 93 Defender 200 TDI. Over the past week, I started having some issues shifting, and the clutch was getting super short in how it was going to engage. Definitely felt like there wasn't pressure in the system. The 200 TDI with the 77 gearbox has a master cylinder up here. This is the master cylinder reservoir, and then it has a slave cylinder that's attached directly to the transmission. So my initial troubleshooting was to open up the reservoir and look at the amount of DOT4 fluid that was in there. So right here, we're currently at the fill line, but when I did my initial troubleshooting, I opened it up and the reservoir was completely empty. If you think of the system overall, basically from the master cylinder, which takes pressure from the pedal, it pushes it through this hose that wraps around down to the slave cylinder. And if you get any air in there when you try to compress on it, that air compresses unlike the fluid, and you end up with an inability to shift. So in my case, what was happening was I would try to put the car in reverse. It wouldn't go into reverse, or it wouldn't come out of reverse, and it was shifting really rough, grinding, etc. So the overall impression I had was that we had a air in the system, or that the master or slave cylinder wasn't working very well. So essentially what I did was reverse bleed the system so that I could get that fully pressurized system back. So let me show you what I did on the reverse bleed side of the house. All right, guys, so this is my super fancy reverse bleed pressure system. It's just a fluid bottle that's used for brake bleeding. I just covered up that cap, and then basically you can pressurize the system with that. All right, guys, let's climb under the old girl, and I will show you where I connected the reverse bleed system to the slave cylinder. All right. As we scooch back here. So we've got a little bit of exhaust pipe in the way. All right, guys, so you can see here, this is our slave cylinder. This is our slave cylinder right here. It's attached to the transmission. This is the bleed valve here, and then just below that is where the pipe comes in from the master cylinder. So this is an 11 millimeter nut. I did about 3/4 of a turn. Using that bottle, I bled off all of the air, connected it to this nipple here, and then just squeezed and pushed as hard as I could. I could hear the bubbling coming out of the reservoir above me, and I pushed until that stopped. And once that stopped, went ahead and tightened that back up, and I was absolutely good to go. Couple things to be careful of is I actually sort of sat off towards the center line when I was doing the work, and that was because I wanted to try to keep any of that fluids out of my eye, and so I would strongly recommend wearing safety glasses when you're doing this type of work. This stuff is not good for you. To get it in your eyes could cause quite a bit of issues there. So just knowing that you're pushing fluid into a reservoir above you, and that's going to come back down, is important, as well as the fact that you're just going to leak some out of that bottle as you're pushing from right here. So once I had pushed enough fluid through the bottom, I could hear the bubbling sort of stop. The air bubbles weren't coming through anymore. I came back up top, made sure that the reservoir was full, put that cap back on, took her for a test drive, and we were good to go. I'm hoping that it was just a matter of potentially either a slow leak or something else. I don't know that there's been a ton of attention to this system in a long time. But I do have a new master and a new slave on the way in case I need to replace them. But definitely the problem at this point is pressure in the system. So I think the next step, if this doesn't solve it, at least in the near term, will be to replace both the master and slave cylinders. But she's drivable again. The system's pressurized. There's no air in the lines, and it's time to get back to driving her.